At the beginning of the movie, Lu, a folkways journalist for the Xiaoxian Journal, arrives in Beigui town to investigate a strange story. Lu insists on going to the Kiao residence, but the man warns him not to, claiming that at midnight the dead return and possess paper dolls, always lurking nearby. Lu is skeptical, but the man says he doesn't understand what truly happened there 20 years ago. When Lu mentions the local belief about spirits possessing dolls after death, the man insists it's real because he has witnessed it himself. In a flashback, a blood-stained paper doll becomes possessed and, when burned, turns into a human corpse instead of ash. After that, the Kiao residence is cursed. Anyone who lives there suffers misfortune or dies horribly, making it a place everyone fears. The man warns him one last time not to go there, but ignoring the warning, Lu decides to enter the house anyway. Later that night, Lu dozes off for a moment and his pen slips from his hand. As he bends down to pick it up, the doll suddenly moves, startling him. He checks it, convincing himself it was nothing. But then, he notices a silhouette outside the house. Uneasy, he approaches the door, asking who is there, and the moment he opens it, a doll suddenly drops in front of him. And when he looks up, dozens more are standing outside. Confused, Lu steps out to see how they got there. But as he looks around, one of the dolls suddenly blows out the lantern. Panicking, Lu runs inside, but in the next moment, he finds himself tied to a table, surrounded by paper dolls, slowly closing in. He struggles to break free, but one of them places a nail on his forehead and brings down a hammer. Lu finds himself in a house, and the man tells him he fainted at the Kiao residence, so he brought him to his home. Lu asks how much he knows about what really happened there, but the man urges him to leave the town as soon as possible. Lu pulls out a photo of Lu San and asks if he recognizes him. The man reveals that Lu San made a grave mistake 20 years ago by breaking a sacred rule. On the night of Yuan's unnatural death, her spirit possessed the doll and returned to seek revenge. Since then, it's believed that the dead can come back on the 7th night after death through these dolls. After the incident, Lu San fled with his disciple, Nanchang, to Fushui town. Lu tracks down Nanchang, hoping she can reveal the truth behind the paper doll possession. But she tells him if he's looking for stories, he's come to the wrong place. Lu places his card on the table and brings up the incident from 20 years ago, saying that Mr. Kiao from Beigui town died under mysterious circumstances. And, according to rumors, it was his own daughter who possessed a paper doll and came back for revenge. He adds that the doll was made by Nanchang's master, Liu San. Nanchang calmly admits that, yes, they made paper dolls. But when Lu says Lu San should never have painted the doll's eyes, she asks, how does he know that? And Lu replies that someone from Beigui town told him. Nanchang finally tells him that there are 2 taboos in the paper doll trade. First, you must never make a paper doll for a living person. Second, you must never paint a doll's eyes. And the greatest regret of her master's life was breaking both of those rules. The story then shifts back 20 years. Butler Kiao visits Lu San and asks him to make a paper doll. But when Lu sees the photo, he's shocked. He asks, "Isn't this Yuan? Isn't she still alive?" But Butler Kiao coldly tells him to just do his job. Lu hesitates, trying to explain that there are rules they cannot break. But Butler Kiao warns him that if he refuses, someone else will make his paper doll. Butler Kiao gives him one final instruction. The doll must be delivered to the Kiao residence in 3 days, and no one should see him. On the second night, Lu stands before Yuan's photo, quietly saying he had no choice, asking for forgiveness. He then prepares to finish the doll, but suddenly, a strange, uneasy feeling creeps in. He looks around, and when he glances back at the photo, its expression changes. Disturbed, he turns, only to realize the doll is gone. Yuan suddenly appears behind him, causing him to fall in terror. He slowly gathers himself and checks the doll again, trying to stay calm. The next day, Lu arrives at the Kiao residence to deliver the doll, but the entire house has a strange, heavy atmosphere, as if all are busy preparing for what seems like a ceremony. Lu approaches Butler Kiao and presents the doll, who inspects it and then praises the craftsmanship, telling Lu to leave immediately. Lu can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. so he quietly peeks into a nearby room. Inside, there's a coffin, and it suddenly moves. And then a man suddenly turns, prompting Liu to quickly leave. That night, Liu hides in the backyard there and watches he'd never forget what happened that night. A supernatural ritual is underway. At the center, Yuan is tied to a wooden platform, surrounded by people preparing the ceremony. Master Han begins chanting, and it seems like they are doing some kind of exorcism. But the truth is far more horrifying. Yuan's spirit is transferred into the doll, and the doll is stabbed and thrown into the fire to kill Yuan. Liu watches in shock as everything unfolds, and then he sees it. The paper doll, slowly rising, but in the very next moment, it disappears, only to reappear again, begging for help. After returning from the Kiao residence, Liu becomes deeply disturbed. That night, he encounters Yuan's ghost. She speaks to him softly, asking, can he paint her eyes? Terrified, Liu tries to flee, but suddenly, her ghost grabs his leg, dragging him toward the fire. And then, he jolts awake, back on his bed. The next day, Liu goes back to Butler Kiao and tells him that he saw the paper doll that was possessed and revived. Butler Kiao takes him inside, where Master Han is performing a ritual. He drives a nail into the doll's forehead, but as it happens, Liu sees something no one else can. Yuan's spirit right there, crying out in pain. Butler Kiao says it seems Liu himself has been affected, possibly even possessed, and orders Liu to attend the funeral later that day, so Master Han can cleanse him as well. Later, on their way to the funeral, a madman suddenly appears, shouting that the paper doll has come to kill them all. He opens the coffin, prompting Master Han and the others immediately grab him and drag him away. Liu dismisses him as a lunatic and urges Master Han not to waste time. A man informs Master Han that the lunatic had placed a paper doll on their way. Seeing it as a bad omen, Han angrily throws it aside and even kicks it in disgust before continuing toward the funeral. As they arrive at the graveyard, Liu suddenly feels it, Yuan's presence. And moments later, he sees her. Completely shaken, he starts screaming that Yuan is back. Panic takes over, and like a madman, he turns and runs, shouting in terror. Liu keeps running through the graveyard, but no matter how far he goes, he ends up right back where he started. Over and over again, frustration turns into fear. Just then, he spots a man in the distance and rushes toward him, begging for help. But as he gets closer, it's a paper doll. Terrified, Liu runs again, but once more, he returns to the same spot. Exhausted, he suddenly remembers. Virgin urine is said to ward off evil spirits and can break a ghost's trap. But the moment he opens his eyes, he's surrounded. Paper dolls everywhere. Panic takes over. He runs again, but no matter how fast he goes, the dolls stay right behind him. Until suddenly, he crashes into one and falls hard to the ground. Shaking, he scrambles up, desperately saying it wasn't his fault, and that Butler Kiao forced him to make the doll. And then, Yuan's paper doll appears. It stares at him and asks, "Can you paint my eyes?" Liu is frozen in terror. The dolls slowly close in, grabbing him, forcing him to paint the eyes. And just as he finishes, Liu suddenly wakes up with the paper doll beside him. Liu rushes to the Kiao residence, only to find the paper doll has killed Mr. Kiao. Soon after, he learns Master Han was found hanging in the forest. Realizing things are out of control, Liu returns to his shop, grabs his essentials, and flees town with Nanchang. Liu dismisses Nanchang's story as an unrealistic ghost tale, but she calmly tells him to believe what he wants. Changing the subject, Liu asks about a painting, and Nanchang reveals it shows her master's deceased friend. Noticing the seal Chen Gosheng, Liu brings up a man known as a lunatic in Beigui town, who is linked to a murder related to a paper doll 20 years ago. He suspects this is the same person mentioned in her story. Nanchang firmly defends him, saying he wasn't mad, society was, and denies his involvement with the paper doll. Liu, unconvinced, presses further, hinting that Chen's connection to her master might be the reason she wants his past buried. Liu finally brings up a strange wedding from the past. In the flashback, Chen is getting married while the townsfolk whisper that he had been sent to the army and must have returned injured, seeing his crippled legs. During the ceremony, The host asks them to bow to the gods, but only Chen responds. The bride remains completely still, confusing everyone watching. As the ritual ends, the townspeople demand to see the bride, and Chen calmly tells them her name is Xiaolian. Hearing this, they are shocked, because Xiaolian was Mr. Kiao's wife, who supposedly died 3 years earlier. But Chen insists she never died. She promised to wait for him. Then he lifts the veil, revealing a paper doll. Horrified, the townsfolk realize it's a terrible omen and quickly flee. A few days later, village children start mocking Chen, calling him poor and crippled, and laughing that he married a paper doll and keeps it at home. Enraged, Chen charges at them, but Liu steps in just in time, grabbing him and trying to calm him down. Liu reminds Chen that when his godmother died, he promised to look after him and urges him to come stay at the paper shop. But Chen refuses, saying his mother is gone, and now that he's married, he has his own family, so it wouldn't be appropriate to bring Xiaolian there. He insists he's fine and doesn't need help. Liu then quietly asks, does he truly want to see Xiaolian? Liu tells Chen about a secret method from ancient texts to summon a soul, but whether it works or not, only time will tell. That night, Chen begins the ritual exactly as instructed. He has 3 days if he can make the chopsticks stand upright in a bowl. It means Xiaolian's soul has returned. But if he fails, it means they were never meant to be, and he must let her go. Chen tries again and again, but fails every time, until he notices a shadow move in the mirror. Startled, he rushes outside and sees mysterious footprints, and suddenly, the candle blows out. He lights a lighter, and to his shock, the chopsticks are now standing upright, and the paper doll is gone. Overjoyed, he believes the ritual has worked, and just then, Xiaolian calls his name. At last, her soul appears before him, and when Chen finally sees her in front of him, he's overwhelmed with emotion. He rushes forward, pulls her into his arms, and breaks down in tears. But she stays completely still and expressionless. He tries to jog her memory, reminding her of when they first met 10 years ago in class, when he was reading a poem. He recalls how she secretly wrote the next lines and hid them in his book. Look at the sky at dawn and the clouds at dusk. You will marry me. That night, Chen wakes to find Xiaolian missing from the bed. Worried, he calls out for her, when suddenly, 2 arms wrap around his waist. He turns and sees Xiaolian with tears in her eyes. But in the next moment, a gunshot echoes. She collapses, and the scene shifts to the battlefield, revealing how Chen was wounded in the war, leaving him crippled. He jolts awake, screaming back in his house, with Xiaolian lying beside him. Nancheng reveals that Chen was sent to war because Mr. Kiao was obsessed with Xiaolian and forced her into marriage. After being taken by the Kiao family, Xiaolian gave birth to Yuan and Tong. Meanwhile, Chen was arrested and sent off to the battlefield, separating them completely. One day, Liu visits Chen, who excitedly claims the ritual worked, but Liu sees nothing except the same paper doll sitting there. Concerned, Liu moves to remove it, but Chen shoves him back. Liu admits the ritual was just a trick to help him accept reality and let Xiaolian go. Chen refuses, insisting the doll is Xiaolian, and angrily warns Liu not to touch her. Later, Chen takes Xiaolian to the market, where Yuan's funeral procession passes by, and Xiaolian's expression suddenly shifts. Sensing her concern, Chen asks if she's worried about her daughter and promises to check for her. He covers Xiaolian with a cloth, then pretends to be a lunatic and rushes into the procession. But when he opens the coffin, he's shocked to find a paper doll inside. Before he can react, he's dragged away and beaten. Master Han then grabs Xiaolian, throws her down, and violently kicks her. After everyone leaves, Xiaolian weakly calls out Chen's name, only to say it's too late. With her final breath, she tells him that if there is an afterlife, she hopes to become his real wife, and then she dies. That night, consumed by grief and rage, Chen hunts down Master Han, attacks him, and kills him. Afterward, he hangs the corpse from a tree, marking his descent into vengeance and madness. Liu connects the dots. Chen was Nancheng's master's old friend, Xiaolian his lover, and Yuan's mother. And Yuan's funeral in both the stories is not a coincidence. Nancheng says what he believes is his choice, but But Lu presses on, noting she cried while telling the story. He says the girl who burned to death 20 years ago was actually her, and her resemblance to the woman in the painting makes sense. Xiaolian was her real mother. Nancheng calls it a coincidence, but Lu grabs her arm and discovers a burn scar, pointing out she always hides it with long sleeves. He then demands the truth. If she didn't die back then, who died in her place? And what really happened to Mr. Kiao? She breaks down, admitting that she has been living like a dead person for the past 20 years, unable to live openly. Back then, her mother was trapped by rigid feudal traditions and forced into marrying into the Kiao family. After giving birth prematurely to Kiao Tong, her mother's health rapidly declined, yet her father showed no concern. As a child, she believed her mother was simply unwilling to leave her and her brother behind. But as she grew older, she realized the truth. Her mother was holding on to much more than just her children. She explains that although her father favored sons over daughters, Kiao Tong's presence brought some warmth into the otherwise cold Kiao family, but it didn't last. When Tong turned 6, he developed a strange illness. Soon after, a mysterious man, Master Han, arrived and began treating him, but nothing worked. Eventually, Han tells Mr. Kiao that Tong's condition isn't a normal illness and cannot be cured with medicine. He reveals that he recently performed a fortune-telling and claims that his daughter, Yuan, is the reincarnation of a heavenly calamity, saying she first caused her mother's death and is now harming her brother. He then declares that there is only one way to resolve it. Later, Mr. Kiao tells Yuan that there is only one way to save Tong, but it requires her help. Without hesitation, she agrees, saying she's willing to do anything if it means her brother can recover. He then gives her a cup of water and tells her to go to bed early. Trusting him completely, she drinks it without question. But the moment she finishes, she suddenly loses consciousness. The story then shifts to the ritual, where the paper doll came to life, terrifying everyone present and causing them to flee in panic. After the chaos, Chen arrived and rescued Yuan, taking her to Liu. Only later did she realize that it was Lu who had lured Master Han away that night, giving Chen the opportunity to save her. Her father's solution to cure Tong was to sacrifice her life in exchange for her brother's. Chen promises Yuan that they will rescue her brother and make sure he gets cured. Yuan tells him that before her mother died, she showed her Chen's portrait and said he was someone she could trust. Later, Lu tells Chen his hatred is understandable, but for the sake of Xiaolian's 2 children, he must not act recklessly. Chen points out that everyone now believes Yuan is dead and asks what they should do next. Lu tells him that his apprentice Nancheng is around Yuan's age and had already returned to her hometown with her family. He will take Yuan under Nancheng's identity and move her elsewhere, which won't raise suspicion. When Chen asks about Tong, Lu says they'll find another opportunity to save him. Driven by a desire for revenge, Yuan returns to the Kiao residence, where she sees the butler angrily confronting Han, unaware of the true motives of both Han and Mr. Kiao. Han reminds the butler that he was the one who brought him into the Kiao family, and he has treated him well financially all these years. He then asks about Tong's illness, but the butler dismisses it as unimportant, claiming that the real issue is that too many people in the Kiao family are fighting over a share of the property. Meanwhile, Chen and Lu discover Yuan is missing and split up to find her. Before leaving, Lu gives Chen their godmother's wheelchair, telling him to bring Yuan back as a paper doll. Back at the Kiao residence, Han captures Yuan and interrogates her, demanding to know who saved her. Soon, Mr. Kiao arrives and is shocked to see that Yuan is still alive. Han explains that someone intervened earlier, preventing the ritual from being completed. But fortunately, he has recaptured her and arranged a new sacrifice. He tells Mr. Kiao that Yuan will be buried in the mass grave behind the hill, where he will use his ancestor's magical weapon to complete the ritual. Mr. Kiao, still tense, gives Han one last chance to succeed, and then leaves. Later that night, Yuan is abandoned in the middle of the woods, left to die from starvation. Just as Lu and Chen arrive to rescue her, they're ambushed. Han holds a knife to Lu's neck, while Mr. Kiao points a gun at Chen's head. Han begins the ritual, while Lu pleads with Mr. Kiao, insisting Tong is just sick. But Kiao reveals he faked Yuan's funeral not just to deceive others, but to lure them out as well, knowing they once saved her. He coldly declares Yuan is a natural-born disaster, responsible for past and future harm, and claims the ritual will transfer Tong's illness to her, sacrificing her to restore the family. Despite Chen urging medical help, Kiao refuses, convinced that fate has already decided. Yuan must die for her brother. Han tightens a rope around Yuan's neck, and as she struggles, Tong begins to regain consciousness. Just in time, Lu and Chen break free and attack Kiao and Han, knocking Kiao unconscious. Han overpowers Lu, but Chen strikes him down. However, Han grabs a stone and hits Chen on the head, knocking him out and regaining control. Lu grabs Han's leg, giving Chen the chance to overpower and choke him. Meanwhile, Kiao puts on the mask and tries to finish the ritual, but Yuan fights back and stabs him in the neck, killing him. Chen subdues Han, who begs for his life, while Lu checks on Yuan and confirms she's safe. Lu suggests they escape while the police take Tong to the hospital, but Chen refuses. He tells Lu to take Yuan and keep her survival a secret. Knowing someone must take the blame, Chen kills Han and decides to shoulder the crime himself, his final act for Xiaolian. Before Lu leaves, Chen says he is counting on him to take care of Nanshan. Nanshan reveals that her master created those two stories to hide the truth, that Yuan was still alive, and to conceal her connection with Chen. Burdened by guilt for the rest of her life, Yuan later named the paper offering shop Lion Chen to honor her mother and Chen. Lu questions how Yuan, tied up during the ritual, could have used the awl. He says that evidence shows the awl was actually pushed from behind, hinting at another truth. At that moment, Nanshan points a gun at Lu, warning him to stop digging further. Lu reflects that Chen sacrificed himself. Lu left his hometown, and Yuan lived in hiding for 20 years like the living dead, all to protect one person. He then begins telling her a story about a dream. Tong wakes up in the hospital, weak and confused, where Sheriff Zhao informs him that his father died 3 nights earlier, so he brought him there to recover properly. A flashback reveals that during the ritual, Tong had actually regained consciousness and stabbed Kiao with an awl to save his sister. However, Tong believes it was all just a nightmare. Lu says she wants to protect Tong, but she says she is not trying to protect him, saying that at that time she was too naive. She wanted to take him with her and run away, but it was because she went back for him that she has turned into what she is now. She says she don't want to protect him, she hate him. Lu says it seems the ending of this story is not quite what he suspected. He thanks her for her cooperation, reassuring her that when he will work on the draft, he won't reveal her true identity. Before leaving, he says he has never flown a paper kite and asks, can she sell him one? She says if he like it, he can take it. And after taking it, Lu leaves there. A flashback reveals Lu deciding to leave Tong at the hospital so he can forget the traumatic events and live a normal life. Yuan must erase her identity, taking on the name Nanshan, while the blame for Kuayo's death will be shifted to her ghost. At that moment, her eyes fall on a newspaper carrying a hidden message, and she suddenly realizes that Lu is actually her brother, Tong. Without wasting a second, she rushes outside to find him, and after searching, she finally manages to locate him. In the past, Lu explains a key rule. Paper dolls are never given eyes, not to avoid ghosts, but to prevent survivors from pouring too much grief into them. But this time, by drawing eyes and bringing the doll to life, he creates a rumor that hides the real truth. He writes a letter to Sheriff Zhang, telling him everything. Now fully aware of the truth, Sheriff Zhang orders an officer to inform the marshal that the murders were caused by a paper doll, and that the case will be closed as unsolved. It is then revealed that the man who had earlier tried to stop Lu from going to the Kiao residence was actually Sheriff Zhang himself. That's it for today's recap. If you liked it, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for more.